That's the mics for me, Aiden.
Testing, can you hear me okay? Wait, hold on. Testing, 1, 2, 3.
Sounds good.
Perfect. How are you? Thank you all for coming today, and thank you also for allowing us to caucus before we get started here today. And I hope you had enough time to caucus as well and spend some time on your proposals and discussion. I just wanted to acknowledge that we have Matt Chasen in the room. He's not part of the bargaining team, but he's just observing. It's an open meeting, so he'll be here observing and yeah, Matt Chasen is with the Office of Accountability and Efficiency.
Okay. And thank you again for being here. As you know, last night at approximately 6:30 p.m., you submitted some additional information requests, I think 18 questions, and we really appreciate that engagement. It signals that you're seriously reviewing our proposals, and so we're hopeful that that engagement can lead to some productive discussions today. The district has received them and began reviewing them immediately. We want to make sure that we're thorough and accurate in our responses. And so rather than to, rush any answers out today to those questions that may be incomplete or require correction later, we will provide written responses to those as promptly as practicable following today's session. So what we're doing today, right now, is Mary, do you have the Mary's handing out the full costing breakdown for all of the proposals, your proposal and our three proposals, which includes the specific COLA figures that you've requested. Along with those numbers, you'll see how those figures impact the budget as a whole. As you likely know, as COLA increases.
I want to point out the COLA is in yellow and the COLA impact in green.
Oh, sure. You'll see on the sheet, the cost of the COLA is highlighted in yellow in each proposal.
For MTEA.
And that's the cost of the COLA for MTEA members. The specific bargaining unit groups are listed on the bottom. There's some other figures in here as well. And as I was saying, as the cost of COLA increases, so does the cost of benefits and steps. And so you'll see some of that in there. And the step calculation that we are using just for the calculations here assumes full steps on July 1, 2026. That's a proposal that the district has made, but actual steps will be determined by board action after meeting and conferring with MTEA and other bargaining units that are interested. So you have the costing. In previous sessions, we've thoroughly discussed the fiscal challenges, which includes the real and significant $46 million structural deficit. You've received answers to many of the 200 questions that you've presented. You have our proposals, and what we still need from MTEA is a counter proposal, an alternative structure, some response to the question that we've been asking since the beginning of the process. And I'll ask again today whether there's any approach within the 2.63 CPI ceiling that works for your members. So we are here, we are ready, and we are asking, what does MTEA propose?
Good afternoon. Thank you for this costing. This is helpful. We asked for the costing for CPI, not for a combined number.
That's the yellow number.
That's the highlighted number.
Okay. That's not the number that we're getting, and so that's what I wanted to get more clarity from your team on, is to see the math, because we're getting a number that is less than that. So we would like to see that.
Do you have your numbers?
I mean, yeah, I can share that with you. Right. I'm just hoping that there's a way to sit side by side, and I don't know who is charged with doing this on your side. But that would be the first thing, okay, that I want.
We could do that to meet and confer.
To say, so here's the place that we're at. And thank you for looking at the additional information requests that we sent last evening based on our discussions yesterday. And it's important for everyone in this room, but also important for the public to understand. That we believe that your side misspoke in their statement about not being able to afford full COLA on July 1st for MTEA workers. We can see that that's inaccurate. And so we are in this place where we must have the full picture of your financial position. to proceed. The district clearly has the funds to meet our modest proposal. MTEA, as I'm sure members of your team understand, is constrained by the draconian union busting legislation that Scott Walker brought in the form of Act 10 to the state. And so MTEA is, by the law, constrained to begin our negotiations and bargaining over cost of living at the minimum. And so we just want everyone to be clear that our position has not changed, that the district clearly has funds. The superintendent is spending funds freely. The superintendent has been spending funds freely. There have been 26 people brought for significant wage reclassifications over the past 6 months. There are hundreds of millions in contracts. And so we're without a doubt certain that any savings that you need to find so that you are not cutting frontline workers can be found in the hundreds of millions of dollars of contracts that MPS has. And specifically, contracts that are not mission critical, that impact children in classrooms on the school floor on a daily basis. So we are constrained by the law to start at the minimum. You are not constrained. You have choices and priorities to determine. The proposals your proposals, the three options as they stand right now, are proposals that are counterintuitive. They are proposals that would result in MPS administration cutting its own throat. They are proposals that will accelerate retirement and resignations. So it's counterintuitive for us to be at this place right now. You don't cut workers. You don't go after frontline workers first. This is an easy solution. I also want to note that I'm glad to see Matt Chasen from the Office of Accountability and Efficiency here today. Last night I was just reviewing my notes from the day, and I was thinking about accountability and efficiency, and the role that OAE has in these matters. And so I was specifically thinking about the 46 million in the context of 1.6 billion, which I think represents about 2% or so of the MPS budget. And frankly, it is an issue to be dealt with. But honestly, if an organization of this size can't resolve a 2% overspend, there are bigger problems here. And so we're coming to the table as a union that represents about 60% of the workforce in this district who have made long-term commitments to Milwaukee Public Schools. So I was reading some of the description of the Office of Accountability and Efficiency. And it says, the Office of Accountability and Efficiency works with others to improve transparency in financial operations and ensure the district runs efficiently and responsibly. It focuses on saving money in areas outside the classroom, like facilities, maintenance, transportation, food service, and purchasing. The Office of Accountability and Efficiency also helps with instructional areas such as textbook tracking and academic research. Additionally, OAE reviews financial policies and ensures strong internal control, creates guidelines for following up on recommendations, shares information to help the public understand district finances. Excuse me. Reviews board and committee agenda items. Runs research and data projects and leads efforts to improve processes. And so that's what I was reading last night. And so I was, when I saw Matt Chasen in the room, like, oh, he has arrived. So, in terms of, I know that you have not identified Matt Chasen as a member of your bargaining team. But I think it's really important that he is here. And that he is engaged in this work in a very real and tangible way so that we can reach, there's an easy resolution in our grasp. I wanted to ask a little bit about vacancies and staffing. As you all were sharing yesterday about the moving parts of funds shifting, what it will cost, what it will save. What we're struggling to understand in terms of your financial position is that what your side is saying is incongruent with what's actually occurring in 139 public schools. There's a clear and alarming disconnect, and that disconnect and misalignment widens, that gap continues to widen. It is not being narrowed. And so in our first session, the superintendent spoke early on in that session about her desire for $25 million for class size reduction. But we need to see the formal plan in writing for that class size reduction plan. As we discussed yesterday, these are guidelines. They are not requirements. They're not enforceable. The guidelines do not have teeth. Very murky to us right now. And so, we will, as I did yesterday, we will follow up with official requests for information about additional pieces that we need to see and understand. And I wanted to go back to the standard of care document that I believe we received the end of last week. So in the standard of care document, it lays out a 0.75 allocation for paras. We were asking about that yesterday. What does that mean in terms of what you, as the superintendent, have directed principals to do? We read that to mean that the superintendent has directed principals to cut. Let me start again and let me see if this is what we're understanding this to say is that through centralized budgeting, the superintendent will cover 30 hours. Is that an accurate understanding of that standard of care document?
Amy, you very eloquently stated the distinction between, as I view it anyways, the distinction between management rights and bargaining rights in a post-Act 10 environment. And I know you know that our negotiations here are limited to CPI. A lot of the things that you're asking about, vacancies and staffing, class size reduction plan, standard of care document, the present question are all very appropriate questions to ask, but not at this setting. They're appropriate for a meet and confer setting, which is a tool that's always available to you and your members. And we'd encourage you to reach out if you've got questions about the OEA. That's another avenue to pursue. That would be through a meet and confer, or just reaching out or hearing their updates during board meetings. Mr. Jason is here as a member of the public viewing today. He's not a member of the bargaining team. But that's not to be understood as though he has nothing to do with the budgeting process or discussions that the district undergoes or any of the district operations, because he's very much involved in all things throughout the district. So I'm hopeful that we'll get back to the issue that we are here to bargain about, and I'm hopeful, you know, the structural deficit is real. $46 million deficit is a real amount. It was verified by an independent audit. And it's not something that the administration had planned on. They only learned of the budget deficit on January 13th, less than 2 months ago. And so they've been working to find savings. They've done work in a number of areas that have been discussed during prior bargaining session. And base wages is another component of the budget and another component of the plan to close that deficit. And so their MPS has proposed 3 different options, each with which yield real savings. And we're still waiting to hear from you, unless your answer is there is nothing, in which case tell us that. But is there anything within this structure or in between that your side can bring to the table?
Thank you. So please understand that all of our questions hinge on the assertion that you all have made that you don't have funds for a full CPI for MTA workers on July 1st. All of our questions come from that. And that's why we stated earlier that clearly your side has misspoken, because that assertion is inaccurate. What appears to be occurring is that the superintendent is making a choice to go after workers first. So we don't, that's what all of our questions are based around. Your financial position still remains unclear to us. And I mean, it's unclear to the public. Principals don't understand. MPS parents don't understand.
There have been, I think, 4 listening sessions on the budget. There have been open meetings on the budget process. There have been there's past budgets that are publicly available, and it's been well publicized that an independent financial audit shows a $46 million deficit. And so that's where we're at. And to say you have money because you've got funds coming in ignores the fact that there are other priorities within the management rights of the district of that can be allocated through that ordinary process, to which the union's input is very important and is always welcome through the meet and confer process. But we're not going to convert those decisions into a bargainable decision and say, oh, you can just take the money away from this priority or this priority. If we're not going to have a quid pro quo discussion of what those other priorities are versus the funds. You know, the analogy would be, you know, when yesterday we talked a lot about individuals' budgets, and the analogy would be, can I go out and buy a Lamborghini? Probably not. But even if I had the fund, that means I'm not going to put food on the table for the kids, or I'm not going to do this other priority. And so it's not a question of the amount of money in that same way. And so I'd like to get back to what is MTEA willing to do to help close that gap if you're saying that the three proposals here are unsuitable.
To be able to speak fully informed and intelligently, we need financial information at Raple Crested.
What information do you still need?
I mean, I can email you. There's from the initial set of 200 questions.
Yeah.
There are several items there that were not answered, that there were items that were answered insufficiently. There were items that were answered incorrectly. And so we're trying to do this in a way that is organized and coherent, so that everyone, including the public, can understand what's actually in play.
Okay, and it's your position that additional information that you say is outstanding, and I recognize that some of the questions are still being supplemented, and as you noted, many of the others have been answered. Is it your position that additional information is not just preferred, it would not just be helpful to evaluate the proposals and engage in some real productive discussions, but it's necessary?
Well, you have to show us. You've made an assertion, and so we're asking you for the very simple information that confirms your assertion.
Which assertion? Because we've provided, you know, today you see the numbers before you on what the costs of what we're talking about are and how they change under each proposal, and it's been well publicized that the starting point for the district's budget is a $46 million structural deficit.
But can I just say that the purposeful exaggeration and manufactured crisis around 2% of the budget we would like to find a solution with you that doesn't involve Milwaukee Public Schools slitting their own throat. We don't understand. We don't have clarity on your financial position in juxtaposition to your assertion that you can't afford full CPI for MTEA workers on July 1st. We believe that that's a choice. And we believe that what MPS is doing is entirely counterintuitive and damaging to the long-term well-being of the district and primarily our students. So, I'll say again, if an organization of this size can't correct this, I'll say it a different way. An organization of this size can easily correct approximately 2% of their total budget when there are hundreds of millions of contracts. And so, that is an information that we have, a request that we will put forward to you later.
Okay.
Is what are all of those contracts? What are they for? And the amount for each one. We're also concerned, there's so much to discuss in contract. That's why MTEA is glad to see Matt Chasen at this meeting. He clearly has a role. His office clearly has a role here. But we would want to see the savings NPS has realized and documented from renegotiating contracts as they expire. We assume that there is a consistent, responsible, coherent process cycle in place where procurement is rebidding annually, renegotiating with vendors, making a fiscally sound determination about whether or not to renew or seek services from other vendors. And so we continue to, in good faith, ask the administration, show us the $25 million plan for class size reduction. Show us the line by line for schools. Because we're simultaneously getting reports that all 10 of the CHAs at Genson Elementary School were cut from 40 to 30 hours this week. 10 children's health assistants working with some of the most medically fragile children that we are responsible for. In terms of toileting, diapering, lifting, feeding, caring for. And so when we asked yesterday about the 0.75 in the standard of care, my understanding that the school board president wanted to have the administration share the standard of care so that we would have greater and better understanding. We don't have that yet. I spoke to you yesterday about 5 paras at Project Stay in Alternative High School. Again, a vulnerable, very important population of students. And having 5 para positions cut entirely, not just from 40 to 30 hours, cut entirely. So if I could, I wanted to take some time. We have worked through several of your responses to our first round of questions. And so we did want to go through some of those with you. I wanted to start with some errors made in those responses so that we can have those corrected publicly. And then also just correct it on your side. So in question 165,
Did you say 165?
165, yes. We asked, how many teachers does MTS project to lose to retirements this year? And we were curious about what is there in bracket that MTS answered over objection as to non-MTEA represented classifications. Just that first phrase. What is meant by that?
To the extent that the question that you've asked would require anything beyond what you're statutorily permitted, then we would think that it was not relevant. However, we provided an answer nonetheless. And as you see, as you continue reading, projections are estimates subject to revision and do not constitute commitments. And the response was approximately 250.
Thank you. So I understand, I think I'm understanding your explanation for the words answered over objection. What is meant by as to non-MTEA represented classification?
Non-MTEA representing classifications would be any classification that's not represented by MTEA.
MTEA represents teachers.
Correct.
So that's what we're trying to understand.
To the extent that any, you gave us a list of 200 questions and a very short turnaround. And so I wanted to make sure that I did not overcommit an answer to the extent any teacher had opted out of being represented, or if there were other groups that were inferred by the question, because the question, the questions did not include any definitions that you provided us. So in the interest of making sure that we're not miscommunicating or addressing issues that are not to be addressed, we included some general objections, which you could read at the front, and we reiterated several general objections for some of the questions that we answered nonetheless. Because again, our goal here is to try and find a solution and provide you the information that you've said is necessary to evaluating the proposals. And so that's what we're aiming to do. And we're also up against a real, real deadlines that are mandated by state statute and the budget process.
So this question was, again, how many teachers does MPS project to lose through retirements this year? And I appreciate your thinking about what you just shared. But it's well known to administration that MTEA represents, we have a teacher unit, and it's well known to administration all the job classes that are included in that teacher unit. And certainly this information about retirements for teachers, that's public information.
Sure. And Amy, it's provided. And if you've got concerns about, any of the language that's used, you were certainly have been invited through our letter transmitting the document to let us know that so we can review it and correct if it needs to be corrected or explain if it's something that doesn't need to be corrected. We haven't until now received anything from MTEA on this. And so certainly if you've got issues with questions or responses, send us your response in writing so we can promptly address those.
We will follow up in writing. And when you say that you've given a response, is that the approximately 250 that you have listed for 165?
Did you read it correct? Yes.
Yeah. Okay. So there's another question response that MPS provided about utilizing a range of 5 to 10%. And so there's a big difference in terms of number of teachers if MPS is using the 5% number or something in the middle or the 10% number. So what is the number that is being used by administration?
So the retirement number that we provided in question 165, we went a few years back, I think we went 3 years back just to see how many teachers retired over the last 3 fiscal years. And it was anywhere between 200 to 300. So that's why we anticipate maybe it's going to be somewhere around that again going into next year, just like it's been for the last 3 years. So that's why we said approximately 250. Retirements, we consider outside of the district's control if staff members' retirements, if staff are eligible to do that, they go. There is a difference between that and turnover of staff that quit or resign and they go be a teacher's. We had control of those staff members leaving. So the turnover rates we provided, approximately 5 to 10%, are actually resignations or those leaving for anything else other than retirement.
If I'm understanding this right, the 5 to 10% is specific to resignations and not retirement?
Correct.
Okay. Why is there such a large range?
I did, well, we don't know what it's going to be yet, and we know some teachers that have already, put in retire,
Right, so you have known in hand and then you would have
Right now,
projections.
correct. So that's why it's approximately around 7%, but I did not want to say that and it be a little bit lower or a little bit north, so that's why we said approximately 5 to 10%. It's somewhere within that range.
That's helpful.
And that is from now to when school begins in September. We believe over the summer there will be some natural churn anyway. In total, going in this fiscal year to next, it will be about.
I wonder, can people hear you too? I don't know. I
Am I
just
not
wanted.
loud?
No,
the microphone
Oh,
over here.
sorry.
yeah, you could be louder, but I just want to confirm that the listening public can also hear. And Missy was checking that. Just making sure that we're projecting loud enough that you can,
Got it.
that all the mics can pick it up, that we're just respectful of our listening staff.
I hope that helps.
Thank you. Just doing a time check. Is there I was just waiting for you.
Thanks.
You're
Go
good?
ahead. Yep.
Um, we would like some time to look at the document that you shared and wondering if it would be easy for your side to provide the math that goes along with the numbers that you've given us.
I don't know the answer to that off the top of my head, but maybe we break for a caucus and we can discuss logistically if you know how we can go about if it's side by side or however we can facilitate that so you've got the information.
Sure, that would be helpful. Before we do that, I just want to be clear with your side and be clear with the public that all of the people from MTEA that you have been meeting with, the long-term economic harm that has been done to each one of these people as a result of Act 10 over the past 13 years, they will never recover from. Their family will never recover from that. And so MTEA is confident entirely that there is a resolution to this, that the administration can tell workers today that they are essential, that they are fundamental, that this district doesn't operate without them, that the district isn't going to slit its own throat, that the district is going to prioritize workers with this very modest proposal for full CPI in July 1st for all MTEA workers. And that is the place that we want to get to. The work that we should be doing, again, MTEA representing nearly 60% of the workers in this district. The work that MTEA has done in the past with previous administrations, the work that MTEA wants to do with this administration we should be sitting in rooms like this, taking time and care to move our student enrollment in massive ways that will make tangible differences for students and families in this city. We should be together, speaking with one voice. To secure the funding our students deserve. And so we just want, before we go into caucus, to say to you, there are smart, committed people on your side of the table, and there are smart, committed people on the side of the table, and this isn't unsolvable. It's absolutely within our grasp to take care of it and to send a message before people leave for spring break. Because what will happen is that this is how people will spend their spring break. There's a cadence that happens every fall when new teachers come to our district. No matter how well you did in student teaching, no matter how many extra hours you're working before and after school on weekends at night, no matter how prepared you were to come and teach, it is jarring. The steep climb to get on your feet as a first year teacher. And so what happens in the month of September and the month of October, the number of new colleagues that all of us are shepherding along, encouraging, saying, don't quit. You're going to get to the other side, and students in Milwaukee Public Schools need you. That happens every year, and we try to hold people up and stand them up until they realize that they can do this work. What's happening now is a message is being sent to administration, to workers, and that message can change. It can change at this bargaining table. Because now what people are going to do over spring break, and what people have already started doing, is looking elsewhere. And so in the fall, we can say, because we're telling the truth, we can say to new teachers, don't you dare. You were meant to come to Milwaukee Public Schools. You are not the first nor the last to struggle in this way. I struggled in this way. I doubted myself. You're going to get up on your feet. And as fellow workers and comrades, we're going to make sure that you do. We can't have those conversations with people right now who feel, I used the word gut punch yesterday, and I meant that. This can be corrected. It is not outside of our grasp. Please, I'll just keep checking my phone. If you can easily provide your math after some time in caucus, we would appreciate that.
Okay, and Amy, I appreciate that, and I appreciate you sharing about the ways that MTEA looks to help strengthen the district, and certainly we welcome that input, welcome those ideas. and are always very interested in hearing all of that. Here today in this bargaining session, of course, we're focused on CPI, and so we welcome your ideas on CPI, especially any that provide a shared and meaningful impact on the budget, which we have an obligation to balance. And so as we break for caucus, I'd love for your side to consider any ideas on CPI that get us there. And so do we want to set a time to come back, or just, like you said, text updates?
We could text.
Okay, sounds good. Thanks.
Thank you.
Amy, everybody here?
Yeah.
Okay. Same. When we broke for caucus, you gave us several things to consider. In addition to the questions that you sent yesterday, we, as a team, reviewed those questions again and considered everything that you shared earlier. And thank you for doing so. And we've identified some additional documents that we think may help, may assist in the process of providing you, a very full and detailed picture. Some of them have been provided previously, and in various forums, but for the interest of the negotiations that are ongoing, we'll kind of provide everything in a nice comprehensive packet, and hopefully that will address all of the questions that you have and the concerns and allow us to make some progress. And so we've already got some folks working on pulling those documents. We're going to try to share those as soon as possible, hopefully tonight or tomorrow. There may be some that need to be shared on a rolling basis, and if so, we'll identify what those are in our communication back to you. And then the question we left you with was whether there's any approach within the 2.63% ceiling in terms of structure, timing, split that MTEA can work with.
Thank you. Yes, does the district have math to share with us?
Yeah, thanks. That's one of the things is we're going to give you the actual behind that spreadsheet. We'll give you all of the pivot tables that make up all of the calculations there.
Thank you. Where we continue to struggle because the landscape changes hour to hour, we know that a communication was sent out by the superintendent at 1:30 p.m. today to all staff that informs and matters in our bargaining and reaching a resolution with you all. So I've had a chance to look at the communication that was sent to staff, I think at 1:30 p.m. today. And the subject line says, supporting employees receiving excess letters, protecting classrooms. And so we are very eager to see the math that you will send later. Because with an initial look at the costing that you provided, we are closer than we thought we were. There's less of a gap than we thought there was. And so having the math will be really helpful, and us also being able to share our math with you. And so I kind of, the team here has a responsibility to speak for almost 6,000 workers and their families and their students. And so I can't underscore enough that in the email just sent to workers that says protecting classrooms in the subject line, doing anything less than a full CPI on July 1st doesn't protect classrooms it annihilates them. It ensures that we will have fewer people working here to serve students in the fall than we need. And our urgency about children being taught by a licensed teacher in every classroom, and something I've actually really appreciated from the superintendent is her use of the word permanent. And so today we still have 109 classrooms with no permanent teacher overseeing teaching and learning in 109 different classrooms. We have some, and thank goodness for them, some long-term substitute teachers. But a substitute teacher is not to be used to fill a long-term 8-month, 9-month vacancy. A substitute teacher is to be utilized to step in and stand in on a short-term basis for illness, a longer-term basis, maybe for maternity or paternity leave or some severe illness. And so we are struggling mightily and are committed to having a full understanding of your financial position. Because we have no doubt that the administration can send a clear signal with full cost of living on July 1st to all MTEA workers. And there's no downside. It's only upside. In the email that was sent out at 1:30, there was also a section that I was reading that reviewed the 263 positions that were cut on March 9th. And that a number of those were teacher vacancies, or vacancies, I should say. And that the district also saw a small number of retirements as a result of that reduction in force. And then that bringing the number to 201 affected employees. So between vacancies and retirements, 62.
Amy, can I interrupt you just for a quick second? We do have to end at 4:00.
Yeah. Okay. Yes, us too. And then we also we're looking at this section about art, music, physical education. And we can't make with what we have right now, we can't make the math add up. So we have a music teacher at Benson High School who teaches 5 days a week music. He's full-time at Benson High School. He was informed yesterday. Benson High School is a mid-sized high school and MPS. He was notified yesterday that his music position at Vincent has been slashed to 1 day a week. And that the music and choir and band and general music experiences that he was able to provide for students over the course of 5 days a week will now be slashed to 1 day a week. And so, there are referendum funds that exist exactly, that were won exactly to restore and stand up art, music, physical education for our students. And so we're in a very difficult position because every hour, every day, all of our reports back from the ground do not line up with what our discussions are here. There's also a section in here about also about the standard of care. And this is this is in contrast to what we thought we understood the superintendent to say yesterday in bargaining and to anything that we've seen before in writing, which is that the standard of care has new class size guidelines to manage. We've never heard the word manage before, and we honestly don't know what that means. And that's why that request for the actual on paper plan for the 25 million for class size reduction is so important to us, because 25 million is a huge number. And the number that we're trying to bridge is maybe 0.25% or something like that. And then it goes on to say class size guidelines to manage and in some cases reduce class size. So you will find us at the table bargaining in good faith, making the information requests that we need to understand your financial position and the assertion that the district can't afford, because that's not lining up for us. And so we appreciate the responses to our information requests that we've received thus far. We're going to continue studying those. We got through several, a good deal of them yesterday. And we will be very interested in receiving the standard of care class size reduction plan that the superintendent would like $25 million for, and the math for your costing. All of that will be helpful to us.
Yeah, and that will be provided, and as you already there's a lot of challenges with budgeting, and those are challenges that the administration works hard at solving every day. And there's a dedicated team that has been quite literally working around the clock to do so. And so it's always welcomed to have other ideas brought forth through Meet and Confer and the appropriate channels. I heard you say anything less than full CPI on July 1 will annihilate your words classrooms. We're going to have a lot of financials coming your way, even more than you've requested, so that you've got absolutely everything that you could possibly need to evaluate these proposals. If it supports our what we've been saying from the beginning regarding the financial condition of the district, are you prepared to move off of that full CPI on July 1 figure?
When we have a full understanding of your financial position, which includes, again, the several $100 million in contracts that the district is involved in. Our team has been looking at contracts and reviewing those.
Right. You mentioned yesterday you would send some to us. I don't believe we've received them.
We have started a list, but to do that, like to be able to have this kind of like good faith exchange that we want to have, we need that upfront information from you.
Yep, that will be provided.
And then the class size reduction. Like, show us the plan and how it's implemented on paper. Because what I'm hearing is that the goalposts keep moving. And we want to get on solid ground so that we can understand your financial position.
Very good. On my question regarding if you anticipate moving, based on what those numbers show.
I mean, I can't theoretically imagine what you're going to send. It will take a lot of time to review it. We're seriously reviewing and looking for a resolution. And as I stated when we first returned, we believe that the resolution is even more in our grasp than we did before we went to caucus.
Okay, we'll continue to wait for what some of those other options might be. We sent a couple of dates for additional sessions.
Mm-hmm.
Looks like we're going to need additional sessions, I'd assume. So if you can respond to that, that was a couple weeks ago.
Yeah, I think that the first date that you sent is the first day back with students. And so that, like the first day back with students would not.
Sure, yeah, if you've got issues with it, just respond to the email and let's figure out when we're going to schedule these.
Yeah, we can get a date on the books. I also didn't know if your team had looked at calendars for Friday to see if there was a free hour that you all had for salary schedules meet and confer.
We'll have to get back to you on that.
We can move our schedules
sounds good.
through that entire day. So we can meet at any hour that you have free and we can do it remotely or in person.
Okay, excellent. All right. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.